For decades, the world believed the relationship between Queen Elizabeth II and Queen Camilla had settled into quiet acceptance. Public appearances showed polite smiles. Official statements suggested unity. But according to a royal historian with access to private archives, the late Queen once spoke candidly behind palace doors about Camilla, and what she reportedly said has stunned even the most seasoned royal watchers. Because the truth, hidden for years, may rewrite everything we thought we knew. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The revelation did not come from gossip columns or speculative memoirs. Instead, it emerged from the work of a respected royal historian who claims to have uncovered notes from confidential royal conversations records quietly preserved in private archives that few people have ever seen. According to this historian, the material surfaced during research into the later years of Queen Elizabeth's reign, a period when the monarchy was facing enormous internal reflection about its future. Within those records, hidden among routine briefings and personal observations, appeared something unexpected, a reference to a conversation in which the Queen spoke openly about Camilla. For years, palace insiders had quietly suspected that Elizabeth's feelings about Camilla were more layered than the public narrative ever suggested. The Queen was famous for her composure, for the careful neutrality she displayed during moments of controversy. But that composure did not necessarily mean the absence of opinion. It meant discipline. It meant understanding that every word spoken by a monarch carries consequences far beyond a private conversation. And yet, according to the historian, there were moments when the Queen allowed herself to speak candidly among trusted advisors. The notes suggest that one of those moments occurred during discussions about the long-term stability of the monarchy, conversations that took place during the final decade of Elizabeth's reign. By that time, the royal family had already navigated decades of turbulence surrounding Prince Charles and Camilla. Public opinion had shifted slowly, cautiously, and the institution itself had begun to reposition Camilla within the royal structure. Yet the Queen, according to the historian, still recognized that the story surrounding Camilla was far more complicated than the carefully managed public image suggested. What makes the historian's discovery so striking is not just the existence of the remark itself, but the tone it reportedly carried. Elizabeth's words were not simple approval, nor were they harsh condemnation. Instead, they revealed a perspective shaped by decades of royal experience, a mixture of realism, caution, and a deep awareness of the delicate balance required to protect the monarchy's reputation. Those present at the conversation reportedly understood immediately that the Queen was acknowledging something profound about the situation, something that had remained unspoken for years. The timing of the revelation has only intensified its impact. With Elizabeth now remembered as one of the most influential monarchs in modern history, any glimpse into her private thinking carries enormous weight. Royal historians and observers have long tried to understand what the Queen truly believed during the most controversial chapters of her reign. Now, this discovery offers a rare window into those hidden reflections. Yet the historian insists that the Queen's remark was never meant to be dramatic or confrontational. It was delivered quietly, almost thoughtfully, during a broader discussion about the monarchy's future. And perhaps that is what makes it so powerful. Because in that moment, Elizabeth was not speaking as a public figure delivering a carefully crafted statement. She was speaking as a monarch, reflecting on the complex human story unfolding within her own family. The revelation, therefore, opens the door to a narrative far deeper than the one the public has always known. Beneath the official announcements and carefully managed appearances, there were emotions, doubts, and calculations that shaped the monarchy's path forward. And understanding those private moments may help explain decisions that once seemed mysterious. But to understand why those private words carry such weight, we have to return to the complicated royal history that brought Camilla into the center of one of the monarchy's most controversial chapters. Long before Camilla ever became queen consort, her relationship with Prince Charles was one of the most controversial stories in modern royal history. What began as a private romance slowly grew into a scandal that shook the foundations of the monarchy and left Queen Elizabeth facing one of the most delicate challenges of her reign. To understand the weight of that moment, you have to travel back decades, to a time when Prince Charles was still the young heir to the throne, navigating expectations that few people could truly understand. His life had always been shaped by duty. From the moment he was born, the future of the crown rested on his shoulders. Every decision, every friendship, every romantic connection carried consequences far beyond personal happiness. Within that tightly controlled world, Charles met Camilla, a woman who by many accounts understood him in ways few others could. Their early relationship developed quietly, away from headlines and public judgment. Those who knew them at the time often described a natural connection, one rooted in humor, shared interests, and an ease that Charles rarely found elsewhere. But the monarchy had its own expectations. Tradition demanded stability, image, and above all a marriage that could reinforce the institution's standing. As Charles's responsibilities grew, the reality of royal duty began to collide with the private emotions he carried. That collision would eventually lead to one of the most consequential decisions of his life: his marriage to Diana. The union was celebrated across the world as a fairy tale, a dazzling symbol of royal continuity. Crowds filled the streets. Cameras captured every smile. The monarchy seemed to have secured another chapter of its long and carefully guarded legacy. Yet behind the scenes, the story unfolding inside the royal family was far more complicated. As years passed, the relationship between Charles and Diana began to fracture under the immense pressure of public life and personal incompatibility. Within that growing storm, Camilla's presence slowly returned to the center of the narrative. What had once been a quiet connection now became the subject of intense speculation and scrutiny. And when the details of that relationship began to emerge publicly, the reaction was explosive. By the 1990s, the controversy surrounding Charles, Diana, and Camilla had evolved into a global media phenomenon. Newspapers dissected every development. Television broadcasts carried heated debates. For millions watching around the world, the story no longer resembled a private family matter. It had become a symbol of the monarchy's vulnerability. Inside the palace, the crisis posed a challenge unlike any Queen Elizabeth had faced before. Her reign had already weathered political shifts, cultural change, and moments of national uncertainty. But this situation was different. The turmoil was not external. It was deeply personal, unfolding within her own family while the entire world watched. Through it all, the Queen maintained the same discipline that had defined her leadership for decades. Publicly, she remained silent. There were no dramatic speeches, no emotional interviews, no visible reaction to the escalating scandal. That silence was not indifference. It was strategy. Elizabeth understood that any comment from the monarch could ignite further chaos. Yet those who worked closest to the palace understood that the Queen was quietly wrestling with the implications of what was unfolding. The monarchy was built on stability, and now the personal lives of its most visible members had become a global spectacle. Every decision carried enormous stakes, not just for the individuals involved, but for the credibility of the crown itself. During those turbulent years, the royal institution entered one of the most precarious chapters in its modern history. Personal relationships had transformed into political crises, and the monarchy found itself struggling to maintain public confidence while navigating deeply emotional family conflicts. And while the public saw silence from the Queen during those turbulent years, insiders now suggest that behind palace doors, Elizabeth was forming opinions she would rarely allow to surface. Queen Elizabeth II was famous for one defining skill: silence. When scandals erupted around the royal family, she rarely spoke publicly about personal matters. But historians now believe that silence may have hidden emotions far more complicated than anyone realized. Throughout her 70-year reign, Elizabeth developed a leadership style built almost entirely on restraint. She understood something that many public figures never truly grasp. Words from a monarch do not fade easily. They echo. They shape headlines, influence public sentiment, and sometimes alter the course of history. For that reason, the Queen chose silence not as avoidance, but as a calculated form of control. When controversy erupted, especially when it involved members of her own family, she remained outwardly composed, allowing time and distance to soften the storms raging around the crown. The scandal surrounding Charles and Camilla during the late 20th century tested that discipline more than perhaps any other moment of her reign. Public anger was intense. Media coverage became relentless. Each new revelation about the fractured marriage between Charles and Diana seemed to ignite another wave of outrage. Yet through it all, the Queen maintained the same unbreakable calm. No emotional statements, no dramatic interventions. The monarchy's public face remained steady, even as the pressure behind palace walls continued to build. Those who worked closely with Elizabeth during those years often described her as fiercely protective of the monarchy's reputation. To the Queen, the crown was not simply a symbol of national tradition, it was an institution that had survived centuries because of careful stewardship. Every decision had to be measured against the long-term stability of that institution. Personal feelings, however powerful, could never be allowed to overshadow the responsibility she carried as sovereign. Yet the historian who uncovered the Queen's private remark suggests that behind that composed exterior, Elizabeth was wrestling with a deeply personal dilemma. As a mother, she faced the painful reality of her son's collapsing marriage and the turmoil consuming his life. As a monarch, she had to consider how that turmoil was affecting the credibility of the crown itself. Those two roles, parent and sovereign, were rarely easy to separate, and during the height of the scandal they collided in ways that few outside the palace could fully appreciate. According to accounts preserved in private notes, the Queen occasionally spoke about the situation with a small circle of trusted advisors. These conversations were never intended for public ears. They were quiet moments of reflection where Elizabeth could discuss the difficult choices facing the monarchy. It was during one of those discussions, the historian claims, that the Queen allowed herself to express an observation about Camilla I that revealed far more about her thinking than the world had ever heard. The remark was not delivered in anger, nor was it framed as criticism. Instead, it reportedly carried the tone of someone who had spent years watching a complicated story unfold and had come to understand the deeper realities beneath the public drama. Those present reportedly recognized immediately that the Queen was acknowledging something the public narrative had never fully captured. What makes this revelation so compelling is the possibility that Elizabeth's calm public demeanor concealed genuine concern about how the situation would shape the monarchy's future. The Queen knew that every development surrounding Charles and Camilla was being examined by a global audience. She understood that public trust in the institution could be shaken if the monarchy appeared divided or unstable. For decades, historians and royal observers have tried to interpret Elizabeth's silence. Some believed it reflected acceptance. Others assumed it signaled disapproval. But the historian's discovery suggests something more nuanced: a monarch quietly studying events, weighing their consequences, and choosing her words with extraordinary care. And it was during one of those private conversations, according to the historian, that the Queen reportedly said something about Camilla that no one expected to hear. According to the royal historian, the Queen's private comment about Camilla was not bitter or explosive, but it was deeply revealing. Spoken quietly in a confidential conversation, the remark reportedly stunned those present because it captured the complicated truth behind one of the monarchy's most sensitive relationships. The historian describes the moment as taking place during a discreet discussion among senior palace advisors, one of those rare meetings where the Queen allowed herself to reflect openly on the challenges facing the monarchy. The atmosphere, according to the notes that later surfaced, was serious but calm. The conversation had turned toward the future of Prince Charles and the increasing reality that Camilla would remain a central figure in his life. By that point, the storm of public controversy had not entirely disappeared. But the palace had begun quietly adjusting to the idea that the relationship was no longer temporary or uncertain. It was in that moment, the historian claims, that Queen Elizabeth offered a remark that cut through years of speculation with remarkable clarity. She did not frame Camilla as an outsider or a threat, nor did she speak with enthusiastic approval. Instead, her words reportedly carried the tone of someone who had studied the situation carefully and had come to a practical conclusion about the realities facing her family. The Queen acknowledged, in simple but deliberate language, that Camilla had become an essential presence in Charles's life, a presence that could no longer be ignored or dismissed. Those who heard the comment reportedly understood immediately that it carried more meaning than its quiet delivery suggested. Elizabeth was not merely acknowledging a personal relationship between her son and another woman. She was recognizing a turning point for the monarchy itself. Because if Camilla remained at Charles's side, then eventually the institution would have to find a way to integrate her into the royal structure without destabilizing public trust. Observers who later examined the historian's account described the Queen's words as both acceptance and caution woven together. Acceptance, because Elizabeth recognized the emotional bond that had endured between Charles and Camilla for decades. Caution, because she was acutely aware that the monarchy did not exist in isolation from the public. Every decision involving the royal family had consequences that stretched far beyond palace walls. The remark reportedly reflected a pragmatic understanding of the delicate balance the crown had to maintain. Elizabeth understood that ignoring Camilla's presence was no longer possible. At the same time, embracing her too quickly could risk reopening wounds left by the painful chapter involving Charles and Diana. The Queen's comment, therefore, suggested a middle path, one guided not by personal emotion, but by strategic patience. Palace insiders who later discussed the remark described it as carefully measured, but deeply telling. That description captures the essence of Elizabeth's approach throughout her reign. She rarely expressed her personal views in ways that could disrupt the stability of the monarchy. Yet in this quiet moment, her words revealed that she had already begun thinking about how the institution might eventually adapt to a reality that once seemed impossible. What makes the historian's discovery particularly striking is the suggestion that this remark may represent the closest the Queen ever came to expressing her true feelings about Camilla. Not in public speeches or official declarations, but in a private reflection shared with those responsible for safeguarding the monarchy's future. In that single observation, Elizabeth seemed to acknowledge both the human reality of Charles's life and the political complexity surrounding the crown. It was a rare glimpse into the mind of a monarch who spent decades balancing family loyalty with national responsibility. But those words also hinted at a deeper struggle inside the Queen herself, one that balanced personal emotions with the duty of protecting the crown. For Queen Elizabeth II, every personal decision carried national consequences, and nowhere was that tension clearer than in the complicated story surrounding Camilla. Because the Queen was not only a mother and grandmother, she was also the guardian of an institution centuries old. From the moment she ascended the throne, Elizabeth understood that the monarchy was larger than any individual within it. Personal emotions could not guide the crown. Duty had to come first. That principle had shaped her entire life, and it became even more critical during the painful years when the marriage between Charles and Diana began to unravel under the relentless pressure of public scrutiny. What the world saw as a dramatic royal saga was, for Elizabeth, a deeply personal family crisis unfolding beneath the weight of national expectation. The breakdown of Charles and Diana's relationship sent shockwaves through the royal household. Inside the palace, the emotional consequences were impossible to ignore. Diana's suffering became a global story, and public sympathy flowed strongly in her direction. Charles, meanwhile, found himself increasingly isolated under the glare of criticism, and in the center of that storm stood Queen Elizabeth, watching her son struggle while knowing that every development threatened the credibility of the monarchy she had spent decades protecting. For a mother, the situation was heartbreaking. But for a monarch, it was also dangerously destabilizing. The Queen understood that public trust in the crown could be shaken if the royal family appeared fractured or out of control. Every headline, every televised interview, every scandalous revelation carried the potential to erode the carefully maintained image of stability that had defined her reign. Behind closed doors, Elizabeth reportedly worked tirelessly to maintain unity within the family. She held private discussions with Charles, attempted to support Diana during moments of deep emotional turmoil, and relied on a small circle of advisors to navigate the growing crisis. Those years demanded extraordinary patience and restraint. The Queen could not simply react to the drama unfolding around her. She had to think several steps ahead, weighing every possible outcome before allowing the monarchy to move forward. Within that painful reality, Camilla's presence remained an undeniable factor. For years, the relationship between Charles and Camilla existed in the shadows of royal controversy. Public opinion was hostile. The media narrative was unforgiving. Yet Elizabeth gradually came to recognize that the bond between them had not faded with time. Despite the upheaval surrounding them, their connection had endured through years of criticism, separation, and public scandal. That realization forced the Queen to confront an uncomfortable truth. The future King of the United Kingdom had chosen Camilla as his companion. And whether the public liked it or not, that reality would eventually shape the monarchy's path forward. Elizabeth could not simply erase the situation or pretend it would resolve itself. Instead, she began to pursue a strategy defined by patience and gradual adjustment. Camilla's role within the royal family did not change overnight. Slowly, carefully, the palace began introducing her into official appearances and charitable engagements. Each step was measured. Each decision was calculated to soften public resistance while avoiding further controversy. Over time, the monarchy worked quietly to reshape Camilla's image, presenting her not as the figure who once symbolized scandal, but as a supportive partner to Charles and a steady presence within royal life. The transformation was subtle but deliberate, guided by the Queen's understanding that public perception rarely changes quickly. Yet the deeper truth remained clear. Every step along that path required Elizabeth to balance her personal emotions with her duty as sovereign. She was navigating not only a family crisis, but a constitutional institution whose survival depended on careful leadership. And through that quiet strategy, something remarkable began to happen. The monarchy slowly prepared the public for a future that once seemed unimaginable, a future in which Camilla would stand beside Charles as Queen Consort. Yet the Queen's quiet strategy would eventually lead to one of the most surprising decisions of her reign. After years of silence and careful distance, Queen Elizabeth eventually made a declaration that stunned royal observers. In a carefully crafted message to the nation, she signaled something that once seemed impossible: the acceptance of Camilla's future role beside Charles. For decades, the question surrounding Camilla had hovered like a shadow over the monarchy. The public remembered the turmoil of the past. The painful collapse of Charles and Diana's marriage had left scars that many believed could never fully fade. Even after years had passed, the idea that Camilla might one day stand beside Charles as Queen seemed unthinkable to many observers. Yet within the quiet machinery of the palace, the future was being examined with a level of strategic patience that few outside the royal household fully understood. Queen Elizabeth knew that time changes perception. Scandals that once feel overwhelming eventually soften under the passage of years. Public anger cools. Narratives evolve. And throughout those decades, the monarchy had been slowly guiding that transformation. Camilla had gradually appeared at public engagements. She had taken on charitable responsibilities. Step by careful step, the palace had begun presenting her not as a symbol of past controversy, but as a steady presence supporting the future king. Still, the final question remained unresolved. Would the Queen ever publicly acknowledge Camilla's place in the monarchy's future? That uncertainty lingered for years, until the moment Elizabeth decided to speak. When the Queen released her statement supporting Camilla as the future Queen consort, the reaction across the world was immediate and powerful. For many royal observers, the message carried enormous significance. It was not merely a formal endorsement. It was a signal that the monarchy itself had chosen a path forward. The words were measured, dignified, and unmistakably deliberate. Elizabeth expressed her sincere wish that when Charles became king, Camilla would be known as Queen Consort as she continued her loyal service. Those few carefully chosen sentences marked one of the most dramatic shifts in royal messaging in modern history. For years, Camilla had existed in a complicated space within public perception, accepted by some, criticized by others, and still associated with one of the most painful chapters in the royal family's story. But with the Queen's declaration, the institution itself had spoken. The monarchy was acknowledging reality while inviting the public to reconsider its perspective. Historians quickly recognized the deeper significance behind Elizabeth's decision. The Queen was not simply expressing personal approval. She was safeguarding the future stability of the crown. Charles would one day inherit the throne, and the monarchy could not afford lingering uncertainty about the role of the woman who would stand beside him. By addressing the issue directly, Elizabeth removed a question that might otherwise have haunted the institution for years. Public reaction was mixed at first. Some were surprised, others were cautiously supportive, but over time, the Queen's endorsement carried tremendous weight. Elizabeth had spent a lifetime earning the trust of the public, and her judgment carried moral authority that few leaders could match. If she believed Camilla could fulfill the role with dignity, many people were willing to reconsider their earlier doubts. From that moment forward, Camilla's transformation within the royal structure accelerated. Her public image evolved steadily. She became more visible in royal engagements, more confident in representing charitable causes, and more accepted within the broader narrative of the monarchy. Behind it all stood the Queen's unmistakable influence. Elizabeth had once again demonstrated the quiet mastery that defined her reign. She did not rush decisions. She waited. She studied the shifting tides of public opinion. And when the time finally arrived, she acted with precision. Yet even as Camilla's public role grew stronger, the Queen's earlier private words continued to linger in the background. Now that the historian's revelation has surfaced, many royal watchers are asking a deeper question. What did those private words truly reveal about Queen Elizabeth's view of Camilla and about the monarchy itself? At first glance, the Queen's remark might seem understated, almost ordinary in its tone. But historians who have studied Elizabeth's leadership style understand that subtlety was one of her most powerful tools. She rarely spoke without purpose. Every observation, every carefully measured phrase, carried meaning shaped by decades of experience. And when her private words about Camilla are examined through that lens, they begin to reveal something far more profound than a simple opinion about a family relationship. According to royal historians analyzing the remark, Elizabeth's comment was not driven by emotion. It was pragmatic. The Queen was acknowledging a reality that had been unfolding quietly for years. Charles and Camilla's bond had endured through immense pressure, criticism, and time itself. Whether the public approved or not, their relationship had proven remarkably resilient. Elizabeth, who had spent a lifetime observing human nature within the royal household, understood that fact with striking clarity. But recognizing Camilla's importance to Charles did not mean the Queen ignored the political complexity surrounding her presence. Elizabeth knew that the future king's personal life could not be separated from the institution he would one day lead. The stability of the monarchy depended on public trust, and trust could be fragile when the royal family appeared divided or controversial. For that reason, the Queen's perspective reflected something deeper than simple acceptance. It reflected strategic thinking about how the monarchy would navigate the years ahead. Historians believe Elizabeth was always thinking about the future king, Charles had waited longer than any heir in modern British history to ascend the throne. When that moment eventually arrived, the monarchy could not afford uncertainty about the person standing beside him. Camilla's role had to be clarified, understood, and eventually accepted if the crown was to avoid another period of public turbulence. This is where the Queen's remarkable patience becomes clear. Elizabeth understood that public perception does not shift overnight. The memories surrounding Charles and Diana were still powerful. Emotions remained raw for many people. Any sudden attempt to elevate Camilla too quickly could have reopened old wounds. Instead, the monarchy pursued a gradual path, one guided by the Queen's instinct for long-term strategy. Over time, the royal household slowly reshaped the narrative surrounding Camilla. She appeared more frequently at public events. She supported charitable causes. She stood beside Charles with quiet consistency. Each step allowed the public to see a different side of her, a side that was less associated with controversy and more connected to duty and stability. The Queen's private remark, when viewed through this broader story, reveals a leadership style defined by remarkable discipline. Elizabeth possessed the rare ability to separate personal emotion from institutional responsibility. Even if she held complicated feelings about the past, she understood that the monarchy's survival required clarity, unity, and careful planning. That perspective also highlights why Elizabeth's reign remains so widely respected. She was not simply reacting to events as they unfolded. She was shaping outcomes decades into the future. The historian who uncovered her comment believes that the Queen always evaluated situations through one central question: what decision best protects the crown in the long run? Seen from that perspective, her words about Camilla become less mysterious and more revealing. They reflect a monarch who understood the delicate balance between family loyalty and public duty, and who chose patience over confrontation. But the story doesn't end with Elizabeth's words, because their impact may still shape the monarchy today. From one of the most controversial figures in royal history to Queen Consort of the United Kingdom, Camilla's journey has been nothing short of extraordinary. And many believe that Queen Elizabeth's careful guidance played a crucial role in that transformation. For years, Camilla existed in a complicated space within the public imagination. Her name was tied to one of the most painful chapters the royal family had endured, and for a long time it seemed impossible that she would ever be fully accepted within the institution she had once been accused of destabilizing. Yet history has a remarkable way of reshaping narratives. Slowly, almost quietly, the story surrounding Camilla began to change, and that shift did not happen by accident. Behind the scenes, the monarchy was carefully adjusting the way Camilla appeared within royal life. The transformation was subtle at first. She began attending more official engagements. She supported charitable causes with growing visibility. Instead of standing at the margins of royal activity, she gradually moved closer to its center. Each appearance allowed the public to see a version of Camilla that had rarely been visible during the earlier years of controversy, calm, composed, and dedicated to the responsibilities that came with royal duty. This gradual integration was not merely about appearances. Camilla also began building deeper relationships within the royal family itself. Those who observed the inner workings of the palace noted that she developed a steady rapport with several senior royals, becoming known for her practical support and quiet loyalty. Over time, the woman once viewed with suspicion began to be seen as a stabilizing presence around Charles. Many historians now believe that Queen Elizabeth's influence was central to that evolution. The Queen understood that public opinion rarely shifts overnight. Instead of forcing a dramatic change, she allowed time to do its work. Camilla's presence within royal life expanded slowly, allowing people to reassess their impressions without feeling pressured to abandon long-held emotions. At the same time, Elizabeth reportedly encouraged a sense of unity within the family. The royal household had endured years of division and media scrutiny. Stability became the priority. Camilla's role, therefore, was not simply to exist alongside Charles, but to demonstrate a commitment to the institution itself. Her dedication to charitable work, her quiet demeanor, and her willingness to avoid unnecessary publicity all helped reinforce the narrative that she was prepared to serve rather than dominate the spotlight. As the years passed, the transformation became undeniable. Public reaction began to soften. Media coverage gradually shifted from relentless criticism to cautious acknowledgement. And within the palace, Camilla's presence became less controversial and more accepted as part of the monarchy's evolving structure. When Charles eventually ascended the throne, the path had already been prepared. Camilla stepped into the role of queen consort not as a sudden surprise, but as the culmination of a long and carefully managed journey. The historian who uncovered Elizabeth's private remark now argues that this outcome reflects the success of the Queen's long-term strategy. Elizabeth had recognized early on that the monarchy's survival depended on managing change carefully rather than resisting it entirely. Through patience and quiet influence, she helped guide the institution through one of its most complicated transitions. What once seemed impossible had gradually become reality. Camilla now stands beside King Charles, not as a controversial figure, but as a fully established part of the royal structure. Yet even as the monarchy moves forward, the Queen's private words continue to echo through royal history. Queen Elizabeth II ruled for 70 years, guiding the monarchy through wars, scandals, and generational change. And if the historian's revelation is accurate, her quiet comment about Camilla reveals something remarkable. Even in private, the Queen was already thinking decades ahead. Throughout her reign, Elizabeth became known not simply as a symbol of continuity, but as one of the most disciplined strategists the monarchy had ever seen. Her leadership rarely relied on dramatic gestures or emotional declarations. Instead, she governed through patience, observation, and a deep understanding of how time shapes public memory. The monarchy had survived for centuries because its leaders understood when to act and when to wait. And Elizabeth mastered that balance more completely than perhaps any monarch before her. The historian's discovery reinforces that image. If the Queen truly spoke about Camilla in the measured way described, it reveals a woman who was not reacting to the noise of the moment, but quietly studying the long arc of royal history. Elizabeth knew that controversy rarely defines the final chapter of a story. Time alters perspectives. People reconsider their judgments. What once seemed scandalous can eventually become accepted reality. In many ways, Camilla's current position within the royal family reflects that long-term vision. The woman who once stood at the center of global criticism now occupies one of the most visible roles in the monarchy. That transformation did not happen overnight, and it certainly did not happen without careful guidance. The Queen's steady influence helped shape a path that allowed the institution to absorb change without appearing unstable. Yet Elizabeth's leadership was never solely about individual relationships. Her ultimate responsibility was the survival of the crown itself. For 70 years, she carried the burden of ensuring that the monarchy remained relevant in a world that had transformed dramatically during her lifetime. Empires faded, political systems shifted, public expectations evolved. Through it all, the monarchy endured. That endurance was not accidental. It was the result of decisions made quietly, sometimes painfully, behind palace doors. The Queen understood that the monarchy could not remain frozen in the past, but neither could it abandon the traditions that gave it meaning. Her challenge was to guide the institution through change without allowing it to lose its identity. Even after her passing, the effects of that leadership continue to shape the royal family. King Charles now carries the responsibility that once rested on his mother's shoulders. The monarchy faces new challenges, new public debates, and new expectations from a rapidly changing society. Yet many of the decisions unfolding today are rooted in foundations Elizabeth carefully laid during her reign. And still, the mystery surrounding the Queen herself remains. Those who worked closest to her often remarked that Elizabeth revealed very little about her personal feelings. She was warm, attentive, and deeply committed to her family, but she rarely allowed her private emotions to overshadow the institution she represented. That restraint created a certain aura around her leadership, a sense that the most important thoughts in her mind were known only to a very small circle. The historian's revelation offers a rare glimpse into that hidden world. It suggests that even when Elizabeth spoke privately, she was thinking not just as a mother or grandmother, but as a guardian of a centuries-old institution whose future depended on careful judgment. And perhaps that is the true lesson behind this story. Royal history is often told through ceremonies, speeches, and public appearances. Yet the decisions that shape the monarchy most profoundly are often made in quiet conversations far from the spotlight. Because if this revelation proves anything, it's that the real story of the monarchy is often written not in public ceremonies, but in the quiet words spoken when no one else is listening. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.